Next, we have Lek Kok Hou, whose emotional journey to rediscover his ancestral roots in Chaoshan, China, was captured in the MediaCorp documentary airing this June, right? Yep. A former senior officer involved in Singapore's key investments in Suzhou and, sorry, I had to do all this because I need to explain you, Tianjin. Kok Hou's story is a testament to the power of perseverance and the support of communities like GSS. Please welcome Mr. Lek Kok Hou, who will take us on a journey home.
So good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for being here and for allowing me to share my family history search today. So a bit of background about myself. I graduated from Master of Architecture from NUS, and that was back in 2014. And my thesis actually probably was the beginning when I got interested in history, about people, and maybe about maybe place history in particular. So at one point, actually when I did my thesis, it's covering my secondary school history about its architecture evolution, and eventually this was also something useful that the school found interesting to put up for its national monument. So I started my career in architectural restoration, and some of the key projects that I've done was during SG50, and it was including projects like Capitol, Singapore, and also South Beach. So as Catherine put out earlier, so I am involved in cross-border projects and investment between China and Southeast Asia right now, including Suzhou Industrial Park project, Tianjin Eco City. But more important today, I think I want to acknowledge is that I'm a proud son of my dad, Lek Kun Xiang, and also my mom, who's here today, Chan Xiu Lian. And I'm joyfully married to my wife, Doreen Teo, in January 2025. So if we kind of recollect it, how this thing actually came about, it was done at a very tight time frame. It was just before I shift to my new house late last year, and also my wedding earlier this year. And I think at some point I connected with Nathan. At that point of time, I was thinking of to do something very simple, just finding childhood photos of my dad, so that maybe I can put it in my wedding montage. Something very simple. And I think this whole journey actually really started with a curiosity, right? As for most of us, it started with a question. Can I find childhood photos of my dad, right? I have some of my mom, even of her when she was in a toddler, even when she was in a teenage. And I'll show you some later. But I had hardly had any of my dad. So that was the main thing. And I think along the way, there was a lot of need for courage to maybe persevere on. Language, we have to really grind through all those texts and maybe from fragmented information that we have online and from very kind people like Nathan, my other friend, also from NUS Archi, who led me on this curiosity search and a lot of brain bounce. So for today, I think I will start off to share maybe 3 chapters. I actually frame it, before this presentation, I also give a call to Nathan. I was saying, actually this whole search, there's a lot of information. How are we going to share it on a basis that the audience might be able to relate to, right? So I actually frame it into, he was saying that maybe you can shape it into 3 chapters, right? So for today, I thought about it. The first part actually is more about the preparation work. So it's stitching a lot of fragmented memories of my dad, possibly memories from narratives from our relatives, and making something meaningful out of it. And then I consider that as the preparation work. The second actually is from all this fragmented information that we gathered, I make it into 2 other small chapters. The first one actually is talking about the 3 brothers at Yingshan village in Chaozhou, where my grandpa came from, right? And we were very lucky. We managed to get the Zupu, and I brought the Zupu here today as well. Yeah, and some of the other primary reference materials that I've gathered during my research. Then chapter 3, it talks about going solo. Why going solo? Because my grandpa actually, he did actually twice migration. So he first relocated from Chaozhou to Malaysia, and then from Malaysia back to Singapore. Actually, the same is for my dad, where my mom, where my maternal grandpa, he first relocated from, I think, Xiamen in China, and he went on to Indonesia and Lampung, and from Lampung back to Singapore. So I think it happens at a period much later than most overseas Chinese came to Singapore. I mean, there's a lot of Peranakan Chinese in Singapore that migrated here much earlier. Ours actually happened probably during the Civil War period in China. And beyond that, I think I can share a bit of reflections, how I think I could motivate future young people out there to do a search for your own family history. So this is my dad, this is my mom. So actually, in the course of Chinese New Year, usually when we went to our relative's house, I'll be a bit more kaypoh, because my second auntie, she's also an avid collector of the family history, right? And she always collect tickets and even stamps and even old family photos, right? So on one of the Chinese New Year, I think it dates back to 10 years ago, we managed to find one boat ticket that my grandpa took the ferry from Xiamen all the way to Singapore. So that happens, if you see here, it's 1947, 10th of April. And then I think somewhere we managed to find a lot of old photos taken by the family. So if you see on the left side, actually it's my mom as a toddler on my grandma's arms. So that is the earliest photo that I have of my mom of her childhood. Then in the middle, I think it's the rare occasions where we see my mom in her long hair. My mom is over there in the maroon shirt. Yeah. So this is, we came to know that she took this photo, I think, with her other siblings when she was just 13 years old, right? And then, yeah, basically it's the ticket. So that led me to become more curious about my own dad. Of course, we know that at a period during Civil War when they fled out of China, it wasn't that easy, right? So I think taking photos, in fact, even videography of any sort was unheard or unknown of. Right. So over here is one of the rare photos that I had of my dad with his mom. So that was the whole starting point of all this. And on the left, it's myself and my mom. So I thought it's like a memory search for my dad. So we begin chapter 1. Stitching memories into meaning is gathering threads of information through time and space. On the right side, actually, is this photo that was taken when MediaCorp was at my new house, when we did a bit of interview. Yeah, when I barely moved in. So in this photo, actually, is my dad when he had his ROM in the village. So after twice migration, right, the first from Chaozhou to Malaysia, and from Malaysia to Singapore, they resided in Punggol, this place called Jalan Payolai. So it's very near to the current Holy Innocent High School, or primary school for that matter. So in my reading of this photo, I felt that at that point of time, wedding need not be something very luxurious, flamboyant, but it's a fanfare of a lot of people gathering together. The village neighbors, of course, the siblings or the relatives on both sides, they will come together and it's just a very joyous celebration of sort. And in a photo, I can see my mom's siblings, my uncles, aunties, and various others together. And that led me to ask my mom to join me on this journey together. And I think that happens around March last year, just before I went for my work posting to Suzhou, I think from April to May. So I was thinking, during that work posting, I could possibly even go for a short trip to Chaozhou if I ever find that information. So from there, we decided perhaps I could look out to a few channels. So I started this search actually looking for the Lok Association in Malaysia and even the Poyit Hui Guan, that means the Teochew Hui Guan in Malaysia. It didn't come back to be useful, because we waited, and they were saying that they might be able to raise it at the AGM. And I think we waited, but there's nothing. So I thought, how about I make it closer to home? I decided to approach the Teo An Hui Guan and also the Teochew Po Yip Hui Guan. And I must say, I really respect how fast, and it's amazing how fast they could return with information within 1 day. I mean, when Boon mentioned just now, it was 10 minutes call. I think mine was somewhat close to that. Yeah, it was a phone call, and the next day, I actually got to speak to my distant relatives in Chaozhou over WeChat call. So just to give a bit of context about the village where my grandpa hailed from, so it's this place called Yingshan Cun, Yingshan village. It's located about 4 km northeast of Lingxi town. If you look at the ashes urn jar, usually they have all those inscribed information on it. But they may or may not make sense right now because of the boundary changes over the years. So it took us some time to arrive at this final locality of this place. So with a bit of more research into it, we realized actually it covers an area of close to 6 km square, only about 1,000 plus residents, and they have 375 households, right? So there's about 8 small villages there. Ours actually belongs to this family called 大人家. Maybe you call that big family. And they are really the biggest family in the whole village. So it wasn't that hard to find. And I think they have a very nice, landscape nearby with farmlands and all. So this is the Google map that we have. And the location is marked in red. So over the WeChat call, even before we went over, I was fortunate to be linked up to my distant cousin. Okay, just a background is that in this village, almost everybody has the surname Lu, or in our context, it's called Lek. So it's the same as Boon. Like, if they give a shout out in their local community, surely you'll be able to find someone. The ancestral home is probably somewhere, or there could be multiples of ancestral hall, even in the same Lingxi Zhen. So we were really lucky. And on the left, if you were to see, actually it's my dad's only probably, I wouldn't say childhood photo, but it's the only depiction of him with his other siblings as a whole. I think it's a very rare photo that we have. And on the right is the only photo of my grandpa's younger brother and his whole family. So if you notice on the left, there's no photo of my grandpa because he wasn't around already by then when there was this family gathering. So out of this search for our family history, something interesting came from my interaction with my friend Desmond and also with Nathan, is that, actually from the Zupu, we realized actually we are the descendants, in fact the 26th descendant of Grand Chancellor of Song Dynasty, Lu Xiufu. I mean, it's in the Zupu. I don't know whether it should be accurate, right? But yeah, it's if you were to do circle DNA test, maybe it might differ because there's so many Lu in the whole village, right? Yeah. So this is a side tidbit of information that we gathered, and it was interesting enough. But I don't think I will go into the details of this.
You can, because Choo's talk was a little bit short.
Oh.
You have another 15 minutes to tell us
Okay.
this wonderful story.
Okay. So, I mean, for the context of the audience today, Lu Xiufu actually belongs to this, they call it the 3 loyal princes of the Song dynasty. Why we call it they are the loyal princes of Song is because they witnessed the final moments of Song dynasty before the Yuan Cao, right, took over. The Mongols took over. So, in fact, Lu Xiufu was the one who piggybacked the youngest emperors, maybe for Song dynasty, and jumped into, I think, the sea at Yashan. So at that point onwards, Song dynasty ended. So, and then together, I think with 2 other people, Wen Tianxiang, whom maybe you all will be more familiar, and Zhang Shijie, they make up the 3 loyal princes of the Song. So if you were to go to some temples, maybe in Singapore and even in Malaysia, I think I recall going to Malacca just last year. I remember there was this Sanzong Wang Miao. Yeah, so I can actually relate to a super ancestor that I can see in a temple. It's amazing. Yeah. So this was what I think we gathered a bit more about this super ancestor, right? After his martyrdom at Yashan in 1279, right? There was probably his only surviving kin went into hiding and marked the beginning of the Lu's clan roots in the region. Yeah, so why they decided to went into hiding, I'm not so sure. It could be because it's the fall of the dynasty. They wouldn't want to be too associated with the previous maybe lineage, right? And I think I recall chatting out with my friends who are from China. Some of them actually were from descendants from the royal family. Like let's say my friend, her surname is Pang. Her name is Tongjia. Actually, it's a mix of two surnames from the royal family. So maybe there's some relations to that. So with a bit of research, we realized actually his son, Lu Zidao, adopted the name Lu Wenyuan and lived in seclusion as a scholar. Yeah, and sometime in the 1300s, by the 5th generation of Lu Shufu, under Lu Sheng, the family began to really document the descent from Mr. Lu Shufu, right? Using veiled references that they mentioned. It's a lawyer minister who vanished into the sea, right? And then I think the real lineage which is closer to us actually is by the 8th and 9th generation. The family resettled in Beikengxiang and compiled a formal generational naming sequence, 字派, reaffirming Lu Shufu as the founding patron of the surname. Yeah. So when we went back to Chaozhou, it was during Deepavali last year, and I think the local government was very excited about that. There was banner to welcome us back to Chaozhou, and I think it was greeted with a lot of warmth. And I think it's a very, very surreal experience because we have never met them before, neither have they met us before. And this is basically the tombstone for Mr. Lu Shufu when various descendants of him gathered together to welcome us. Chapter 2, which talks about the 3 brothers at Yingshan village, and is bound by blood, shaped by hills, parted by history. Why by blood is because there was some bloodshed in the family. It was also related to the Japanese occupation. And then shaped by hills is because there's a lot of nice landscape in Beikengxiang. And parted by history because the 3 brothers actually entered in different faiths. So I did a bit of mapping. Right. If you were to look at it, there's 2 mysterious figures because we never actually get any photos of them before, right? So on the top actually is my great-grandfather, from paternal side. So his name, when we look it up on the Zupu, you can take a look here. Based on the Zupu, he's at the top, Dongying, this area, right? So he had 3 sons. So 3 sons. The eldest son is Lu Bingfa. Middle child actually is my grandfather. Okay, yeah. So actually, based on this Zupu, you can actually infer some information from within. So Dongying actually is my great-grandfather. He has 3 sons, Bingfa, Bingqing, and Ruiqing. So in Teochew, Bingqing and Bingxing actually sound the same. They wouldn't know the difference because in Teochew they call it Bingce. So, and if you notice on Bingqing, there's a qiao below it, referring to overseas Chinese. Yeah, and then on the left, the elder brother, actually he died very young, which I'll share some of his biography later on. And then on the right side is the younger brother. You will notice some text that mention 据本族奏喜. So it's interesting. There was later I'll share a bit more how these various stories actually weave into our further reading of this Zupu. But before that, I thought it was very interesting that during the trip, we managed to revisit the ancestral home, not the clan house, but the ancestral home of my grandpa. So basically, this is the house where they grew up in before he embarked on his journey to Nanyang, right? So we even, with some gracious help from the local community, we got an architect to help us document this building, dimension to dimension. So the left side, top left actually is the home for my grandpa and his younger siblings, and his brothers, sorry. And then on the right is where their father actually resided in before they shifted next door and maybe built this building. And on the bottom left, obviously, is when we visited our distant relatives there, and we gathered for a photo. I decided to do some mapping of photos, probably from that time, just to have some sense, maybe when Grandpa, before he left Chaozhou, what was the community life like at the point of time. It wasn't very different when we revisited there, because I think we're lucky that Beikengxiang didn't subject to a lot of new government developments, so a lot of buildings were kept. And in fact, I think it's one of the areas where the Chinese Communist Party considered it as I think a hero's relic or something like that, because Zhou Enlai actually stayed one night at the village. Yeah. So these are just some photos that we gathered. On the left actually is the farmlands where the siblings tended to the farms as a livelihood. In the middle actually is the well that probably my grandpa took maybe the last bottle of water before he walked on foot from the village all the way to Zhangling Gugang. That's what we heard, probably in 1934, when he was just barely 16 years old. So I must really applaud him for his courage that he was able to even thought about leaving China at such a young age, right? And then on the right is the longan tree. So according to my distant uncle, he said that my grandpa probably got with him a bunch of lychee and then walked to Zhangling Gugang. That tree is still around. Yeah. So this is my eldest, I would call that maybe grandpa's brother. So he actually inherited the house that you saw just now. So he married this lady, Xu Xiulian, same name as my mom. Yeah. And they had a son, from what we gather, is in the year of the sheep. The year-wise, whether it's 1931 or after, we're not too sure, but based on some plausible assumption, it could be that he was around 17 years old when he had the son. But because Japanese occupation also happened around that same period, 1939 to 1945 in Chaozhou. So when he was on watch duty, I think probably he's one of the soldiers there, he was killed. And then his young son also passed away quite at a young age, around 8 or 9. And then even despite the grandma's help, efforts to seek medical help, and then she remarried. But in that village, it's interesting because everybody is a surname of Lu. So there wouldn't be like a Lek and a Chan or Lek and a Tan, right? So eventually your surname merged still under Lu, right? So I must attest to what Boon said. You give a shout out, it's really just that village or within the proximity. So, and the family continued to reside in the ancestral home. And from that new husband, they had 3 children, right? And we met with the eldest son, Lu Huitian, and his wife, and also his 2 children, which I now call, is it Biaojie or Biaojie? Probably Biaojie, because, yeah. And this is my grandpa. How we get this year, born in 1918, also took us some effort. Why I say this is because in Singapore, actually, the Chinese name actually is just for maybe our own, let's say if you were to have your ashes urn jar, right? It's actually inscribed on that jar. But this name actually has no maybe implication. Let's say if you want to look up on the registrar, birth registrar, death registrar, this name actually has no impact. So how we gathered this was a bit of luck, right? I managed to trace back my mom and dad's marriage cert. And my grandpa was the testimony, right? He actually witnessed, even though in his passing, they will still record that as your birth parents, and that has the actual English name. That's very, very important, because without that, you wouldn't be able to do a search on ICA for the death extract. And from the death extract, you actually can gather a lot of information, including the birth year, obviously the reasons for his death, and from there, I could gather this figure, right? Born in 1918, and he died in 1969. I mean, that would be a factual thing, right? So essentially, from there, I realized Grandpa probably would have experienced a few milestones in his life, which is interesting, right? He experienced 1918 Shantou earthquake as an infant, just when he was born. And then in 1922, he experienced the Shantou typhoon. And I think these early memories probably shape how he's so resilient, even going to Nanyang at the age of 16. So what we understood was that he traveled on foot to Zhangling Gugang. Probably, I'm not sure, maybe he could have took a transit at Shantou Port, right? And bound for Nanyang. So, from what we further gathered is that the ship usually doesn't dock in Malaysia. They will still come to Singapore first, and maybe at a quarantine center, then you take on a smaller ferry all the way to Malaysia. So from 1934 to 1957, he lived in Teluk Sengat, Johor, and we gathered this information from some relatives who still have his NRIC in Malaysia, right? And in 1957, they moved to Singapore, beginning a new chapter during Singapore's early independence years, probably in the 60s. He was a hawker. He was a fish seller and farmer when he was in Malaysia. Then, so the last bit was that when he passed away in 1969, from what the distant relative in Chaozhou shared with us, was that from Singapore, I think it could be my aunties and uncles, they sent silver pieces, 银片, and also white mourning cloth, 白布, back to Yingshan village, where the younger brother and his other kids reside. So I would consider that the final moments of remembrance of his brother. Some photos of Shantou earthquake and the typhoon. And the younger brother, I would suppose probably he was born in 1922. So usually we don't have information of when our grandparents are born, because there was no birth registration at a point in China. But the point of death, we do have information. So he spent his entire life in Yingshan village. I think the family has contributed quite a bit to the Lu clan house restoration, which we are thankful. Otherwise, we may not be able to find so much information. He married this lady called Zhang Canfeng and had 7 children, 4 sons, 3 daughters, which we managed to meet during this visit. Very, very lucky, right? So 2 of the sons actually served in the army, one based in Guilin, the other one was based in Hainan for a few years. I think at that point of time, if you were a soldier, you could still fend for your own livelihood with a certain level of decency, right? Then, and the rest probably are farmers, or otherwise you have migrated overseas. He passed away at the age of 1988, around age 66. So a touching story that we heard from my uncle was that he really missed his elder brother who migrated to Nanyang. So in his later years, I think he went a bit erratic. He was writing on the walls on charcoal his elder brother's name almost every day, because that elder brother never come back ever since he departed from Chaozhou in probably 1934. So when we went back last year, it's probably the very first time, 90 years later. So even the uncles and aunties, when they saw us, I think it was greeted with a lot of tears of joy. So just before we came back to Singapore, I thought we make a few pilgrim visit. One was actually to the tomb for my paternal grandpa's younger brother, Lu Reiting. So interestingly, the tomb for the wife and the husband is right next to each other. Yeah, and then so you can actually see the inscribed information of the husband on the wife's tomb, the same maybe like Boon, right? And then in the middle actually is the clan house, the Lu clan house in that village. There's at least 2 in that village. Yeah, So this is more for 大人家 Lu clan house, while in the whole Yingshan Cun there's a few others. And we offered prayers at the local shrine, probably where my grandpa maybe offered the final incense before he came to Nanyang. We took a group photo. At that point of time, because my sister couldn't make it, so I decided to video call her on WeChat, and then we took a photo together. I think this one doesn't show it, but my sister was momentarily there for a while. Yeah. And I mentioned about my grandpa and his younger brother. Apparently, they have a godfather in Singapore who sells Teochew Kueh, right? So he migrated to Singapore at an early age as well, and passed on his family assets to my grandpa's younger brother in Chaozhou. So in the Zupu, there's an interesting information that you can see here, is that Rui Qing actually inherited whatever Zhou Xi has. So he's the godfather, but in terms of the Zupu, they actually consider him like the family, right? Then you pass on. So the Zupu that is recorded beyond that actually belongs to Rui Qing. So his kids, meaning my uncles, and my cousins, they're actually lineage from this godfather. It's interesting. And then when the godmother actually passed away, there was a letter and an album that was sent back to Singapore. Sent from Singapore back to Chaozhou. And it shows the family portrait and some writings. And this is one of the photos that we got. I decided to do a very quick mapping of Grandpa's journey, right? From Yingshan to Zhangling Gugang and then to Shantou. So chapter 3 is a very quick hustle that my mom and myself did just last week. Because I was thinking for today's sharing, maybe we can wrap up this whole journey, right? The journey from Chaozhou to maybe to Malaysia and then finally to Singapore. So we decided to go on Mother's Day. It's a short day trip. So I decided that maybe this chapter can consider going solo, finding hope at Teluk Sengat. Going solo, I took inspiration from Rodell's book, Going Solo. It's a moment of courage, crossing journey across waters in search of light and new beginnings. So we got this information of Teluk Sengat is from a few sources. The left actually is my dad's birth cert in Kota Tinggi in Malaysia. In the middle actually is my second uncle's birth cert. So if you notice, actually the name for my grandfather also evolved over time because the birth registrar decided they interpret the Chinese name in a different way. You can take on different names. On the left, you notice my grandpa's name was Lek Ping Che. On the middle, he has changed his name to Lepichi, right? And then this is my distant uncle who is in Singapore, Tang Phúc Nam, and we have the address on there that was the main source of reference that we went back to Teluk Sengat. So Teluk Sengat is a very serene fishing village. Not so many Chinese over there, mainly Malays, but we are thankful that there's also a Boyip Hui Guan there, Chaozhou Hui Guan. Yeah, and then nearby there is also a Chinese temple. So I think there's not much that we could share from this trip except just a few photos. So this is probably the shop house nearby. And we met up with the neighbor. So just before my dad, my grandparents remigrated again back to Singapore, these are their neighbors. So basically the dad for this, the father for this neighbor, he's still, who's not around anymore, but the kids are still staying in this village, 44. And we gathered this could be the formal address for my grandpa's family. And this is the land plot. I think a Taiwanese businessman bought over the entire plot, unit 43 to 46, and demolished all the buildings. So now it's a barren site. Some photos from the Teochew Hui Guan over there. And the grave. Why I put this grave here is because My grandma, my paternal grandma, actually his elder brother was, I think he committed suicide when it was during Japanese occupation. Before the Japanese soldier came in, he decided to end his life. So he's probably buried here, but we have no hints of where he could be buried. And I think at some point last year, when I realized my grandpa was from Telok Sengat, I reached out just to the crocodile farm owner, Miss Cecilia Ng, whom we also met during this trip. And somehow we are related because his own dad is a very close friend of my great-grandma's, I think, friend. Yeah. So finally, I'm not sure why the wordings turns out a bit weird, but in terms of reflection, I end this with a short poem. Right. I think this whole journey of a search for our family history could be something like that. A soulful return to our roots, a quiet pilgrimage along the footsteps of our grandparents, a reflective journey to understand the lives that shape our parents, and a stitching of memory into meaning. Along the way, we are guided by the curiosity to seek, the courage to face what surfaces, and more importantly, the composure to embrace each moment with steady grace. And in time, we wish to carry these stories home. Thank you so much. Oh, then this is just something candid. There was a lantern that was given by our distant relatives in Chaozhou. They were saying that 灯笼是天丁. Then so they gave me a very small present just before my wedding. Yeah. Thank you.